Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. Today, we've got a really interesting conversation with Fabian Wilckens. Now, Fabian, you're the CRO of Mindfuel. You actually have a lot of work working across the world, bringing US startups into Europe, vice versa, bringing European startups out and adjusting it all over the world. But what we're going to be talking about today is throughout all those experiences, how do you as a CRO create a go-to-market flywheel? How do we get it up? How do we get it operational? How do you actually define what that is? And so we've talked for a bit before this, and I'm really excited. What I'd love to do, though, is expand a little bit more on your background before we get into this. So maybe you can give us a little bit more than the few tidbits that I threw out there about your background.
First of all, thank you, Steve, for having me. I'm greatly appreciated because I think your content is amazing. And I hope that our viewership will enjoy this episode as well. A little bit about me, what I've been doing over the last decades or so was to actually work for US-based scale-up startups and also large corporations, bringing their sort of SaaS business to Europe. And now Mindfuel is my first company that's actually European-based. It's actually a Swiss company, partly German, and we're expanding into the world. And to me, what I love about this, because you have different perspectives. Like so far, I've taken, let's say, an American perspective and trying to adopt it in Europe with some success and some great success, but also some learnings along the way. But now it's basically taking a European style to the US and basically finding the best of both worlds and hopefully going to make this work as well. And one thing I did learn, and this is what we're going to discuss today, is this whole idea of challenging the status quo a little bit in modern day sales. And very much looking forward to the discussion with you, Steve.
Great. Well, as we start talking about challenging the status quo, we first have to understand really what are the challenges in today's modern B2B sales environment. There's a lot there. So I think that's a good place to start in terms of what do you see out of your vast experience here are the main challenges to succeeding in sales in B2B today?
I think one of the things is that the world has changed quite a bit since COVID hit us a few years ago. And everybody was focusing a lot more on digital channels. And with digital channels came more tooling, more process, and a lot more outbound activity. And then Gen AI and all the wonderful AI models started to also impact our work. And people forgot a little bit about the human interface between each other. We are relying a lot on technology these days in sales, be it metrics, be it tools that can automatically detect our ICP, target personas, which message fits where, and will automatically draft messages. All that is great and everything, but it keeps the human out of the loop. And I truly believe that now is the time to bring the human back into the loop because AI is done very simply. A lot of people can start with AI. And I remember that it was like 15 years ago, we had this slogan that you could start a business from the couch, which was back in the day was a lot of joke about it. All you need was a laptop and you could manufacture goods, let's say in China, you can ship it across the world. You can build your online empire without even leaving your sofa. And I think these days it's even worse because there are a lot more tools available. All I need is some money to get it started. And the problem is that a lot of people can do it and you can portray yourself as a very different company. I think bringing back the humans is a challenge in modern day sales because we rely so much on automation and nothing against it, but automation doesn't rule out human intervention. And we are an AI company, so we work a lot with AI, and this is what we're preaching people. So you can do amazing things with AI, but human supervision is still something you might want to do. And I get the feeling that a lot of companies these days are looking at it from a cost perspective because AI is much cheaper than humans, believe it or not. But from an effectiveness perspective, think output versus outcome, it may not be the exact same. You may hit your metrics, but you may not hit your sales goals. And that's obviously not a good trade-off that anybody wants to be in these days.
As I'm thinking about getting more of the human factor, I immediately start thinking about how do we get into more conversations in the sales environment and how that's getting so much harder to do. Gartner has talked very eloquently about the B2B self-service buying journey, where 80+%, they want to go way down the buyer's journey before they ever even talk to us as a sales organization. So it's incumbent upon us to then, how do we get earlier in that buyer's journey? How do we spark conversations earlier? So as you're talking about this human element, it seems like it's more important than ever. because we don't want, like talking about the tools that we have, and they have their own tools now to survey all the content that's out there and available, help them make their decisions and avoid these conversations, basically help them avoid human interaction. So there's a lot of dynamics that are happening and in play here. So what do we do about it?
That's a good question. So I always tell one story, which I personally love, because to me, this illustrates the problem that we are facing with regards to what you said. And that is, I've got a great friend, and he's the chief data officer of one of the largest European companies, a very smart guy. And I asked him this question once a few weeks back was, how many people try to get in contact with you to sell you something? And he said, well, honestly speaking, I get a lot of emails, I get a lot of LinkedIn, but I don't feel I get a lot of people. So I get a lot of these emails that say, hey, download the latest and greatest Gartner white paper on why our company matters the most to a specific challenge. Read the latest benchmark reports on how our engine is faster than anyone else's. He said, the problem is that they all feel the same and they all read the same. And at some point you just switch off. I think this is a great example. But what he said is, I don't get these sales guy that says, hey, I've been working with these many people across your organization. I've been doing interviews with those people. I've been listening to your challenges. I've been reading your annual report. He said none of that is coming through anymore because it's all very personalized, but it's all very automated at the same time. Every email is pitch perfect. There is no unique writing style. All are very eloquent. The grammar is perfect. It's just unnatural. So this to him, and I think this is a great example that I believe is universally applicable. It just feels like there's no one really interested in him as a person and what his personal challenges may be in basically overcoming organizational hurdles and obstacles to bring his career and obviously the organization forward at the same time. And I do believe that one of the things is that you got to do your research, you got to listen. And I think nowadays, Stephen, you know this better than anyone else probably, we rely heavily on playbooks these days. And our playbooks are made in a way that product organizations typically design sales playbooks. So everybody builds an amazing product and it has all its reason for existence. But to your point, people don't buy early in the cycle anymore. They buy late in the cycle. But if you swamp them with information, and it's not just you, but thousands of other people or companies, and they all feel the same way, it's very hard for a decision maker to actually make a decision. And what I do believe what makes a difference is that you have a human in the loop, a human that understands like what challenges exist, and he can actually break out of this automation hurdle to a degree, or automation vicious circle, and actually get to know you, get to understand your challenges. And I think this is important without pitching your product too much, because it feels like modern day salespeople, they are not experts in their specific field anymore. And I know that I love medpic, I love all these methodologies, where be it certain different frameworks, and they all have their reason for existence, but they train you a little bit to be a robot and not to be, let's say, a good communicator anymore. So I do believe that it's very important to be genuinely interested, curious about who you're speaking to. That is something you have to bring across. Whether this is a non-perfect email or a personalized postcard that works particularly well, or sending someone a cake or a video message or whatever it may be, but you've got to be the one that's making a difference and that's genuinely wanting to help you without just pitching your product. Because to your point, everything is metric driven these days and everybody has the best metrics. I worked a lot in the database space in the past, and guess what? We could literally invent metrics from one day to the other that made us look better than anyone else. And the market was relatively new, so nobody knew what was good or not. People were just basically comparing apples to oranges all the time. Nobody really knew what was going on. And nowadays it's even worse with AI and so many different technologies out there and so on and so forth. So to make a long story short, humans need to be in the loop. And I don't know how often I can stress this, but I felt that we lost sales a little bit. And I think what we have to change, and hopefully we will change that again, because AI is great in everything, but it's like my favorite example is you take a scientific calculator. Sure, you can do easy equations on it, but if it gets to the more advanced stuff, you've got to be an expert there to actually use the tool correctly. And it's the exact same with AI. You can get results fast, but they're not super results. Everybody can get to these results fast with some basic knowledge of how sales works. But I think the difference is trying to understand what the other party wants, how you can help, and also to qualify out fast if you can't help. Not to follow shiny objects too often, but to drop out as early as possible and to not waste anyone's time.
Here's a huge takeaway from what you've just said there. By the way, we remember things 22 times more when it's told in the form of a story. So the story that you told there of the experience when he was being sold to this chief data officer, and it just felt like a sea of sameness. Everybody's approach, everybody's pitch, everybody's email. And that is backed up by, but B2B companies today have on average between 20 and 30 competitors. I've talked to chief customer officers, chief data officers, chief security officers, chief revenue officers, and asked that same question. How do you actually make a decision in this kind of an environment? And you know what they said? They said, I want to know what it's going to be like working with them. Because if it's a cybersecurity company, they're all going to have a platform that does this and this and this and this. So everybody's going to pitch, they have you absolutely covered, right? So it's very, very hard to differentiate on product, especially in an age of rapid innovation. Even if there was a platform that did something, it's going to be replicated. It's not a long-term sustainable competitive advantage. So what the number one thing, and the Gartner study came out with this, that said the number one sustainable competitive advantage for businesses today is customer experience. And what you said to me is that customer experience starts at the very beginning of an ABM sales cycle. If you can create an experience that is different, more personal, more human, like I actually care. I'm not just sending out blank pitches and hoping that the numbers and the masses are going to be in my favor. Is that a good takeaway from what you were talking about?
I would agree 100%. I would add one thing though. I think you genuinely have to live your product, because you have to be convinced yourself that what you sell is actually helping people, and not just on slides, but it's actually helping people. Because I think a lot of times, and I know this from recruiters that approach me day in, day out, they would look for three things, like framework A, B, and C. Awesome, you're the guy. But I'm not a cybersecurity guy. If a cybersecurity company would approach me, I have zero to little knowledge in that respective domain. So I cannot actually help people, because sure, I want to learn if I get into that space, but I won't be the most effective seller. You got to get really into it. It's not like, oh, I've sold all different sorts of enterprise stuff in the past. Awesome. However, I think nowadays the difference is that you've got to be in the depth. I guess you could almost say that salespeople should be full stack, which I know is a big deal when it comes to marketing and development. But I do believe that we need something like full stack salespeople as well, who are to a degree technical if required, to a degree commercial, but also to a degree political and smart and genuinely curious. And I think there isn't many out there these days, because we look for different things. We look for closers, we look for hunters, we look for commercial experts, but we rarely look for in-depth knowledge in sales anymore. I think that is something that we absolutely have to change. I've interviewed many salespeople in the past, and typically we had an interview guideline, but none of the questions were in-depth technical questions. They were like, all right, rank your patch. Give me 10 accounts in your patch that you would pursue. Where do you have connections? How would you approach these companies? Give me an example of an outbound email. And that's all perfect, but you genuinely just test for sales skills, which quite honestly, all these people that you hire that are experienced will be able to just throw out at a moment's notice. But when it comes to technical knowledge and in-depth value add, it's very hard, but not a lot of companies test for that anymore.
And in this idea of deeper knowledge, I'm pairing that together with something you said earlier. You just can't sell product. You can't just pitch product, because what B2B buyers want is they want to be advised. This is the trusted advisor role that we know we need to play. And to be that advisor role, you have to understand them at a much deeper level than just the product you're pitching. Your product might be this much of their job, their responsibilities, what they're trying to do, their goals. You have to understand this bigger portion that they play in to be an advisor and not just a pitcher, not just a seller. When you start to say you have to be deeply knowledgeable, you got to have all the right sales skills, but if you're going to be considered a consultant and not a seller, you've got to have that larger frame of reference.
Yes. When you say the consultant, I personally think one of the best things that works for us or for me in the past is to state your intentions clearly at the beginning. You said, I'm here to sell you something, but I don't want to sell you something unless you don't want to buy it. So I'm not here to convince you to buy something you don't need, which will mean that I need to understand where you are right now. I'm genuinely here to understand it. Yes, I'm a salesperson. Yes, I do carry a quota. Yes, I'm very interested in positioning my product at your respective company, but for the right reasons, because otherwise it's going to end up shelf, and that's no help to any of us. So it's got to be a mutually beneficial situation. And for that, I may play a consultant to a degree, but as every good consultant, at some point I would give you a recommendation. And my recommendation may well be that my product is exactly what you need, or it may be that you are not ready for it yet for a number of different reasons, or that there's just no need at all that we can help you with. And then there's no point in continuing discussion much further, because we would just literally waste each other's time. And that's not a good thing. So that's my opener. And it works extremely well because people appreciate the honesty, because they want to be sold to still. It's nice to learn about new things that happen in the market and always learning about things that can help their respective challenges. But I think to make clear from the very beginning that I'm here to sell you something, but not for any reason, but for the right reasons, I think that does make a difference. But that requires in-depth knowledge to understand and react to questions, to statements, to what you are being told almost in real time. And that is not something you can read of a playbook, unfortunately.
No, but the authenticity that comes in with the motivations and the intentions, if you just literally say, I don't know if I can help you, then they at least know you're just not here just to intentionally just pitch, and that's it. I would call them nuances or adjustments in the sales strategy. How do you think about the sales strategy adjustments for the challenges, the nature of the beast of what we're in today? How do you translate that over into now training your team and getting them ready?
That's an excellent point. My personal key learning over the last years or so was that I think so far every process that I work with, I'll start with product to marketing to sales to customer success or after sales or professional service or whatever. It was always a straight line with an arrow pointing left or right, depending how you look at it. And it was always, okay, well, first we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this. And then after we finish this whole journey, what happens next? And then all these questions came up like, oh, who owns revenue attrition? Is it customer success or is it sales? Then people started with account tiers. And then there were things like, oh, marketing needs a digital channel, but digital channel to small, medium business is a different sales motion all of a sudden. And now you had all these parallel pipelines, but they were never linked up. But general practice in the industry to design those pipelines like a CRM system dictated you to design those pipelines, because we've just evaluated CRM systems and there are differences, but fundamentally when it comes to pipeline management, they're all the same. You've got stages and they always go from left to right, and you can have many in between and you can have quality gates, but the end of the stage goes back into the beginning. It never turns into a circle of sorts. And what I believe and what I found, and something we're trying right now, is to build more of a flywheel-type sales process, which is we have product in center. The product is what keeps the wheel spinning. Obviously, we need something to sell. And then we have little elements around it, marketing, sales, and what we call it value acceleration, but effectively customer success. Every one of these little, let's say, aspects around the wheel, they have outcome metrics, not output as in MQLs or something. We don't incentivize marketing people by creating a lot of leads, but we incentivize them by creating the right leads. So they own the first stage of our sales funnel. Of course, we still have a CRM system with a standardized sales funnel, but the first stage of an opportunity is owned by marketing and not by sales. So effectively, we eliminate the sales qualified lead stage, if you will, and have that stay with marketing. Then the sales team has one goal, and that is to create purchase orders. That's it. At the end of the day, it's that is. Forget about revenue for just a second, because ultimately a PO will translate into revenue. And if you don't close any business, you can talk revenue as much as you want, but you still need POs to drive revenue growth. And then the last piece of the puzzle, if you will, is the customer success team or value acceleration. Their outcome metric is effectively customer references, which then can again be used for marketing purposes, because we know not more about a certain industry, how certain people use our product in a respective fashion. Then we like keeping the wheel spinning. Like the more leads we create based on the references that we observed and got public, the more POs we can create, and it keeps on spinning and hopefully accelerates over time. But what I like about it is because there's no end in the process. It's effectively a wheel. So yes, we do create leads based on references to create POs, and it just keeps on spinning. And the good thing is that every little spine in the wheel is connected to the product. So product gets feedback in all stages of the process. So what works in sales? Where are we not successful? Are there maybe some obstacles in product that need to be resolved fast? What's with after sales support, with the value acceleration? How do people, because it's very different to sell a product and to operationally use it, but also how do we market it? I think combining all these into this flywheel motion is something that hopefully is going to work for us. The only challenge is you need a lot of different systems because traditional CRM systems aren't actually built to do that, because product people have their product tools. They have their whatever Jira's ticketing systems of the world to do product stuff. Marketing people have marketing tools, sales people have sales tools, and customer success people have their tools. And getting it all into one platform, that is the hard piece, because the systems weren't necessarily designed to do that. So if there was a wish that I had, please, someone out there build this CRM system that covers the entire flywheel.
And if a year from now you see that Fabian and I have started a new startup, you'll know where it started, right here, right today. So I want to ask a question about that flywheel. Because gone are the days where marketing people are like, we're going to create our MQLs, throw them over the wall at sales, and then we're done. That CMOs know they have to be pipeline focused, pipeline driven. They have to own much more of this. Makes perfect sense. In sales, nothing else matters other than the purchase order. That makes perfect sense. So the part of the flywheel that I want to ask you about is this customer success, you called it value acceleration, that comes around the top of the circle and back into marketing. What are the elements of this value acceleration that take customers? Is it referrals? Is it testimonials? Is it case studies? What are the elements that you're bringing together that then feeds back into the marketing organization?
It's an excellent question. To be honest, it's all of them, ideally.
Yep.
I personally feel like case studies are the least important ones these days, because this is my opinion, so don't quote me on this. I know it's public, but still, I always feel like they have some shady background to them, because sometimes I read metrics on these case studies and I'm like, okay, great, sounds great on paper, but there's no way this resembles reality in any shape or form. To me, the best type of reference is customers talking to prospects without our involvement. If we have a database of people that we can refer to, say, interested folks, that is definitely something that I think is the best. And I don't need to be involved in that. If I just trust my people, that we keep them happy, that we make sure we overcome their respective challenges, we develop the product in their direction, and so on and so forth, why would I not just put them on the phone and say, you know what, don't talk to us. What does it matter what I say? I obviously stand behind my product, but talk to these guys. And the more of these people in different industries that we have, we use a lot of quotes. We ask people for a lot of social quotes that we can use, but not like these. We achieved an ROI of 700,000%. And I know I'm over exaggerating this quite a bit, but those numbers aren't real. I've not seen a single ROI calculation in my life that would pass the test of actually being tested. They look great on paper. They're good to convince people. But if you really do the math, none of them actually may add up. This is why I hate when people use ROI. But what does matter is experience. Like, how did it change my job? Did I get home on time? Was my team more productive? Did we get more done? Although this may all be very subjective, but well, emotions and subjectivity are very important, because objectifying something and making objective, let's say, decisions, that's an easy thing. Because you will always find something to convince finance people who are involved in every major transaction these days. If you build a case, that's good enough, but you need to convince the people that it actually makes their life better, easier, faster, more productive, whatever it may be. So that's what we try to get out of those. Reference is maybe a strong word here, but that's what we try to get as an outcome of our value acceleration phase, is to get a positive, reusable asset, if you will. So we actually call it marketing reusable asset, which is not a standard metric, but something that marketing can take and put back into any of the channels, be it advertisement, be it social, be it email, or more traditional marketing, be it events, whatever it may be.
So there was a 3-time B2B CMO that was on the podcast a few months ago, and she said the campaigns that work the best across marketing and sales are where the voice of our customers leads ours. That's validation from the peer community of who you're selling to. So I love it because when we say things, and even if it makes all the sense in the world and eyebrows raised and people are like, I haven't thought about that way, it means this much. If we get the peer community of who we're selling to validate it, it means this much. Now I see the flywheel in actually trying to create these marketing reusable assets that come back in and accelerate the voice of the customer. I could see how it doesn't fly.
Yeah, and just maybe a funny proof point that's quite actual that happened literally 3-4 days ago. So we have this super smart SDR in our company. She's amazing, right? Rockstar, world-class SDR. She's just amazing. And she basically took a lot of the quotes that we had from customers and ran it via whatever Gen AI model and basically say, okay, how would these people, if they all meet, send emails to each other? So the traditional marketing emails read, hey, find out the latest about X. Here's our free whatever learner's guide or something. Read our most amazing white paper, something like that. And she said that nobody writes emails like that to a colleague. And that's true. And I thought it was ridiculous in the beginning because I said, this is not going to work. So we ran an A/B test with maximum 2 words in the subject, all lowercase. And it's something like, check this out, where that's 3 words now, but super useful or something like that. And the opening rates make a material difference. They're substantially higher. And the reason why I believe that is because this feels like an email that someone would forward to you. So it's not check out our free resources like this long subject line. It's very condensed and nobody would think I would open this up immediately because this is just not super professional, but it's personal. So it's a very quick call to action. It looks unprofessional to have an all lowercase email subject. I mean, think of what marketing people would think about it. It's like, we can't do this. There's no brand voice in it or whatever. But it works. So we work a lot with people who know statistics better than I do, but they said it's statistically relevant and it's actually really good. It's 10% point or so more opening rates on this particular one. I love this as an example of how you can use the data to even change tiny little bits of making even modern days automated communication more personal and more human. Because people think that it's a human writing this and not a massive campaign with a lot of banners and things into it. Then we found a study that an email without logos, an email without images works best. That I can also confirm. So we're collecting a lot of data now, but it's all based on what customers told us and said, what email would you open? Especially when we build a relationship where you can ask these questions, and the learnings were just super cool so far.
I love this. It ties back to what you said at the very beginning, but we have to be more human. You're bringing it all the way around and sharing from one human to the next. These marketing reusable assets are just bringing the human element in. The humans that are actually using the product, that have benefited from it, that have had that experience. So it all makes sense. I want to ask you, because I have a feeling we could talk for another hour easily here, but if there was one main takeaway that you wanted people to take away from what we've already talked about here or what we haven't covered yet, what would that be?
So that's a loaded question, of course. I can give my personal opinion, and I think that's what's needed here at this point. Personally, I think we need more responsibility under a role, like we would call it a chief growth officer, because I believe that one of the challenges is that all these things I talked about are very siloed in reality, because marketing rolls up into a CEO, so does revenue, so does customer success to some degree. I know some organizations, they put it under revenue, but I wish there was a role that's actually responsible for getting this wheel spinning. And I'm taking the wheel just as a visual example here, but I feel like there's still a rift between marketing and revenue, so marketing and sales. And there's another rift between sales and customer success because everybody loves to build their own little kingdoms and their own little castles. And I don't think there is an overarching role that combines all these 3 elements as they are essential to a go-to-market life cycle in a SaaS product. And it's not the CEO typically because he's got other things to worry about. Be it company valuation, which should be every CEO's goal, stakeholder happiness, whatever it might be, product as well, but not the operational side of getting the whole go-to-market motion going. And if you think about it, and I heard and I read some articles about it, that the chief growth officers are coming up more often nowadays. or their discussion about it, I think that's actually a vital role. It's someone who understands the dynamics of it, but is not a marketing expert. Someone who understands how sales works, but is maybe not the best salesperson in the world. Somebody who does understand how people adopt products, but is maybe not the perfect person to actually drive adoption, but someone who can actually bring this whole thing together and get it into the state of visionary, agile methodologies so that it keeps on spinning. In the US, I guess they call it in the military a drill sergeant. So someone that's pounding the drum a little bit without being the super soldier, him or herself. So that's how I would love to see that role being established in outbound and go-to-market organizations.
It makes sense. That breaks down silos. I do a series on why the B2B CMOs fail so quickly, why the B2B CROs fail so quickly, 2 shortest tenures in the C-suite, and different silos, different goals, different definitions of the ICP to begin with are right at the top. I love this, and I know people are going to have questions. Would it be appropriate if we maybe gave a link to your LinkedIn profile that people could reach out and ask you those questions?
Anytime. I love the interaction because, of course, I don't know everything. It's just my learnings, and whether it works or not, that's a whole different discussion. But I love to get feedback, and I love to interact with people to share knowledge because, look, it's on us to learn how to be better sellers and how to delight our customers much more.
Well, thank you for coming on and sharing all these insights. It giving us new ways of thinking about creating our own flywheel and even nuggets down to how do you create these marketing recyclable assets or usable assets. So thanks for coming on, and I'd love to have you back on because I think there's a lot more we could talk about.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to the next time.